urging its government to rethink its ties to China. The calls come over the regime's mishandling of the pandemic.
But there's no doubt we can't have business as usual after this crisis, and we'll have to ask the hard questions about how it came about and how it couldn't have been stopped earlier.
Just 5 years ago, then Prime Minister David Cameron declared the beginning of a golden era for the UK-China relationship.
So this visit marks the start of a new era. Some have called it a golden era in relations between Britain and China.
In 2015, the UK threw a lavish welcome for the Chinese regime's leader, Xi Jinping. Cameron even took Xi out for a pint. By the end of Xi's visit, the two countries signed over $60 billion worth of deals. Under Cameron and then Finance Minister George Osborne, the UK left its door wide open for Chinese money and pushed for closer economic ties.
There is no economy in the West that is as open to Chinese investment as the United Kingdom. You know, we welcome Chinese investment. There is huge amounts of Chinese investment coming into Britain at the moment. Indeed, we're attracting more investment than Germany, France and Italy put together into the UK.
The flagship UK project funded by Chinese investment was a new nuclear power station at Hinkley Point in southwest England. Chinese state-owned company China General Nuclear Power Group, or CGN, took a one-third stake in the $28 billion plant, which was built by a French group.
We've created a model where we can attract Chinese investment into civil nuclear power.
In return, CGN was allowed to build and operate its own facility at another site. The project was highly controversial. One of the main risks, handing some control over critical British infrastructure to China. When former UK Prime Minister Theresa May took over, the project was put on hold for review, though it was eventually given the green light. But last year, new questions emerged about CGN's involvement when the company was blacklisted by the U.S. Commerce Department for attempting to steal nuclear technology. Chinese investment in the UK covers many areas, from the famous London black cabs to Heathrow Airport, from Barclays Bank to Thames Water. But it's most often focused in the energy sector. Chinese investment peaked in 2017, reaching $20 billion. In comparison, the Netherlands received less than $4 billion, and Germany less than $2 billion in the same year. Aside from investment, trade between Britain and China also doubled within a decade. And with the UK now out of the European Union, Downing Street is free to hammer out a new trade deal with China.
Our ambition is for more trade, not less trade. And China clearly shares this ambition.
Some UK officials have said the country is China's best partner in the West. It was the first Western country to become a founding member of the AIIB, short for Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. Launched in 2016, the China-led $50 billion project was designed to provide infrastructure funds in Asia. It's considered a rival to World Bank and the existing Asian Development Bank, a U.S.-backed institution. The UK's move to join angered the U.S. as Washington has raised concerns about the new bank's management and lending standards. U.S. officials saw establishing the new bank as an extension of Beijing's soft power. Contrasting her predecessor's eagerness to join the AIIB, Theresa May was reluctant to endorse another of the Chinese regime's projects, the Belt and Road Initiative. The massive infrastructure project is said to include over 70 countries and cover more than two-thirds of the world's population.
Belt and Road is a cornerstone of the Chinese Communist Party's aggressive foreign policy goals and expansionist goals.
That comment comes from a U.S. Senate hearing about the initiative last year. Critics also say it will trap poor countries in debt. Despite ongoing concerns, current Prime Minister Boris Johnson has expressed great interest in the initiative.
Listen, we are very enthusiastic about the Belt and Road Initiative. We're very interested in what President Xi is doing.
And the most recent example of the UK's deep economic ties to China, the country's decision to open the 5G market to Chinese telecom giant Huawei. Huawei has been operating in the UK for 2 decades, and it's a major supplier to Britain's biggest telecom company, BT. The relationship was investigated in 2012 over potential security concerns. Huawei is now widely reported as having close links to the communist regime.
And there's not only a legal requirement, but there's deep financial investment. You have senior leaders in these companies that are tied to the Chinese Communist Party. We think that it's not about a technical back door. They have the front door.
Despite the U.S.'s repeated warning, Johnson's government decided in January to include Huawei in the rollout of the country's 5G networks, with a market share cap of 35%. Last year, shortly before he was chosen as Prime Minister, Boris Johnson told a Chinese-language TV station that he would be pro-China. But now anger is rising at the Chinese regime for its handling of the pandemic. Johnson is under increasing pressure to reassess the Chinese regime's position as a trusted partner. And last week, the chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee warned that those helping Beijing to target British businesses would face scrutiny. This after the UK government stopped a Chinese company's attempt to take over a British chip maker. It's the same group that tried to buy American chip maker Lattice before the deal was stopped by President Trump in 2017.